Have you ever felt like you're too much but never in a way you could explain? You walk into a room and conversations shift. People glance but avoid. You try to be kind, soft, patient, but still, something in you seems to unsettle the world around you. It's not what you say, it's not how you act, it's something deeper, something felt. And even if no one can name it, your soul already knows. You're vibrating at a frequency that doesn't fit where others still sleep. Carl Jung taught that when we begin the journey of individuation, the process of becoming our true self, we step outside the collective patterns of the unconscious. And in doing so, we start to disrupt what's familiar, predictable, and accepted, not through force but through presence. The more you align with your truth, the less compatible you become with falseness. The more you clean your energy, the more others feel exposed in theirs. That's why people pull away. That's why you're called too intense, too sensitive, too much. Because your vibration reveals. And revelation is uncomfortable to those who still hide from themselves. This video is for those who've felt it, who've tried to shrink, to soften, to blend in, but couldn't. Because when your frequency rises, your soul refuses to play small. Today we're going to explore 13 signs that you're vibrating on a level most people aren't ready for, and why that's not something to fix, but something to finally understand. Stay until the end, because the reason you felt like an outsider may be the proof that you've already awakened. Sign 1. You feel everything more deeply, and that makes others uncomfortable. You were never just emotional, you were aware of energies before they became words, aware of shifts in the room before anyone else noticed. You could always sense the tension behind the smile, the sadness behind the eyes, the dishonesty hidden in the tone of someone's voice. And because of that, people often didn't know what to do with you. Carl Jung believed that those on the path to individuation begin to merge with their deeper, intuitive nature, a part of the self that sees through the surface of things. When this happens, emotional depth is no longer a weakness. It becomes a language, and you've always spoken it. But for people who are disconnected from their own feelings, your sensitivity is confronting. Your depth touches places in them they've worked hard to silence. You remind them, just by being, of what they've forgotten, denied, or numbed. They may say you overthink, that you're too sensitive, that you feel too much. But the truth is, you feel exactly what's there. And it's that accuracy, that raw, unfiltered presence that unsettles them. You're not broken. You're just awake, and awakening doesn't make you fragile. It makes you aware. So when people recoil from your intensity, remember, they're not running from you. They're running from the part of themselves that you unintentionally brought back to the surface. Sign 2. You can no longer stand shallow conversations, and that silence reveals everything. There was a time when small talk filled the space. You nodded, smiled, laughed at things that didn't move you because that's what everyone else did. But now something in you resists it. The words feel weightless. The performance feels exhausting. The longer you stay in a space where truth is absent, the more your energy aches. You don't crave attention. You crave authenticity. Carl Jung believed that as the self begins to emerge, the personality starts to reorganize itself around depth. And when you begin to live from that place, conversations that dance around truth feel like static in your soul. You try to stay present, but your body knows. Your energy pulls back. Your eyes search for substance. You're no longer available for what doesn't nourish your spirit, and people notice. Even if they can't explain it, they sense that they can't keep you in the performance, that your silence in the middle of a shallow conversation says more than their 1,000 words. Some may think you're cold, disconnected, arrogant, but you're not. You're just not willing to sacrifice your integrity for the comfort of pretense. And yes, that can make others uncomfortable. because your refusal to pretend silently challenges their habit of doing so. You're not here to fill space with noise, you're here to bring presence into every word, or none at all. Sign 3. Your intuition speaks louder than logic, and that threatens those who need control. There's something in you that just knows. You sense when something's off, even before it shows. You feel the truth behind a smile, the discomfort hidden beneath agreement, the unspoken shift in someone's energy. And most of the time, you're right. Even if you can't explain how Carl Jung believed that the unconscious mind holds ancient wisdom far beyond what rational thought can access. He taught that those attuned to the self begin to trust this inner compass, the voice beneath the voice. That's your intuition. But intuition unsettles people who rely on control, because they can't predict it, they can't map it, debate it, or dominate it. And when you trust what you feel over what they say, you break the structure they've built their identity on. People who live by strategy feel exposed around you, because you don't need evidence to feel truth. You don't need logic to walk away. You don't need permission to sense what's real. That kind of clarity is terrifying to those who manipulate narratives to survive. It disarms those who depend on hiding, and sometimes they'll call you irrational, overdramatic. They'll ask you to prove what you feel, but you don't owe proof. You only owe your own alignment. Because when your soul speaks, it does so with a wisdom no argument can match. Sign 4. You see truths that others pretend not to, and that makes you disruptive. You've always seen things that others seem to miss, or worse, avoid. The elephant in the room. The unspoken tension between people. The quiet sadness in someone who says they're fine. You don't force these perceptions. They just happen, like your eyes were made to pierce through the veil. Carl Jung wrote that truth lives not only in facts but in symbols, dreams, energy, in the layers we refuse to name out loud. And the more aligned you become with your inner self, the more clearly you begin to perceive what others deny. But not everyone wants to see what you see. Some are too invested in their illusion, in their version of peace built on avoidance, in their idea of love built on performance, in their sense of control built on denial. So when you speak, it stirs. When you stay silent, it confronts. Your very presence becomes a quiet invitation to drop the act, and that makes people deeply uncomfortable. They may call you difficult, too intense, too serious. But in reality, you simply don't play along with the unspoken rules that keep people asleep. You're not here to maintain the illusion. You're here to hold space for what's real. And yes, that will always feel disruptive to those still hiding behind the lie. Sign 5. Your presence demands authenticity, and masks fall around you. You don't ask people to be honest, yet somehow they are. They stumble through rehearsed lines. They pause before answering. They shift, fidget, avoid eye contact, because something in your presence doesn't tolerate performance. Carl Jung taught that we all wear the persona, the mask we show the world to survive its expectations. But when the self begins to awaken, we no longer feed the mask. We begin to dissolve it. And those living still behind theirs feel that shift when they meet someone like you. You carry the frequency of truth, of rawness, of wholeness. And that frequency doesn't allow pretense to remain standing. People sense, often, unconsciously, that they can't fake it around you, so they either drop the mask or they walk away from the mirror you've become. You don't judge, you don't expose, but your energy does something far more powerful. It invites alignment, and for many, that's terrifying. Because to be authentic, they'd have to confront everything the mask was hiding. This is why some people only stay close to you briefly, because even in silence you ask the one question they've avoided. Are you being true to yourself? And in that space, truth becomes magnetic or unbearable. Sign 6. You break unconscious patterns. Simply by existing. Some people don't realize they're stuck in a pattern until you walk into their lives. Your presence alone begins to disrupt what was once automatic. They can't manipulate you the same way. They can't pull you into their drama, their silence, their old cycles. Carl Jung described how we repeat unconscious scripts, inherited beliefs, unresolved traumas, emotional reflexes, until something shocks us out of the loop. And sometimes, that shock isn't an event, it's a person. You are that interruption. You don't play the expected role, you don't respond as predicted, you don't mirror dysfunction. You reflect truth. And that alone collapses the old dance. They might feel frustrated, they might feel exposed, they might feel powerless, not because you took power, but because you wouldn't participate in the game. Your refusal to repeat their pattern becomes the beginning of their awakening, or the reason they leave. This is why you often trigger people without meaning to, why they lash out, why they suddenly ghost, why they say you're difficult. You are not difficult, you are different, and in being different you activate the possibility of change. But change begins with discomfort, and not everyone is ready for what your energy quietly dismantles. You didn't come to fit in. You came to shift. Sign 7. Shallow relationships exhaust you and people take it personally. You used to try. You used to nod, laugh, show up, make it work, even when the connection felt hollow. But now something in you simply can't. The effort to maintain a relationship without depth feels like dragging your soul through sand. Even if the other person means well, even if they've done nothing wrong. Carl Jung spoke of inner transformation as a shedding process. The more aligned you become with yourself, the less you can tolerate what vibrates out of sync. And shallow relationships, no matter how polite, start to feel like noise. Weight, friction. You don't hate these people. You just feel empty in their presence. Because your spirit no longer feeds off surface-level bonding. It craves truth, coherence, soul. But others rarely see it that way. They feel rejected. They think you're distant, arrogant or cold. They say you've changed them, and they're right. You have. Because once you've tasted alignment, you can't pretend small talk is meaningful. Once your soul has spoken, you can't keep repeating the same emotional scripts to feel normal. This is the cost of your elevation, fewer connections but deeper ones, and a growing silence from those who only knew how to touch your surface. Let them misunderstand. Let them walk away. You're not withdrawing. You're protecting your energy. You're saving space for what's real. Sign 8. You activate people's shadows even when you don't mean to. You don't provoke. You don't attack. You just exist, this fully, honestly, openly. And yet people around you begin to act strangely. Irritability, projection, withdrawal. At first it doesn't make sense, but deep down you start to understand your presence didn't hurt them. It revealed them. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the rejected hidden part of the psyche that we deny in ourselves but unconsciously react to in others. And you, just by being whole, become a mirror for what others haven't faced. You walk in truth and they feel their lies. You move in freedom and they feel their cages. You speak with presence and they feel their performative words fall flat. It's not your fault, but it is your influence. People who've spent years numbing certain emotions can't always explain why your energy makes them feel raw, unsteady or exposed, but that doesn't stop the reaction. You didn't trigger their wound. You lit the room where it was hiding, and some will be grateful. They'll start healing. Others will run, reject you, even resent you, not because you did anything wrong, But because your light touched the part of them they've never been ready to claim, you awaken what they've tried to forget. And that is the quiet power of walking in your full vibration. Sign 9. Your energy refuses what your soul no longer accepts. There was a time when you tolerated more than you should have. You smiled through discomfort. You stayed in places that drained you. You said yes, even when your soul whispered no, but not anymore. Now, before your mind can even justify, your body withdraws, your intuition contracts, your energy resists. Carl Jung spoke of the deep alignment that comes when the ego surrenders to the self, a return to inner coherence, and when that happens, your vibration begins to filter reality for you. It rejects what your soul has outgrown. You may notice it in subtle ways. Certain conversations feel unbearable. Some environments feel suffocating. Your heart closes before your logic catches up. It's not rudeness, it's resonance. You're no longer available for what doesn't match your truth. And while that may confuse others, it liberates you. You don't need to explain why some things no longer fit, why certain people no longer feel safe, why you left spaces that once felt like home. Your energy already knows, and it's doing the work your words can't. This isn't a rejection, it's protection. You are not being cold, you are being clear. And clarity in a world addicted to compromise can feel like rebellion. But this rebellion is sacred, because it's not about pushing others away. It's about finally choosing what aligns with the soul you've become. Sign 10. You are a mirror, and not everyone can face what you reflect. You've noticed it. The way people shift around you, sometimes they open up, sometimes they retreat, sometimes they don't even know why they feel uneasy in your presence. It's not because of what you say, it's because of what you reflect. Carl Jung taught that the psyche projects onto others what it cannot yet integrate, and when someone stands in front of a clear mirror, like you, those hidden elements surface. You don't just reflect smiles, you reflect conflict, doubt, longing, the very parts they've buried. Your presence becomes a silent confrontation. Here is what you are, without the mask, and that, for many, is unbearable. They may blame you for what they feel, they may avoid you, mock you, or call you too intense. But deep down, they're not reacting to you. They're reacting to their own image when finally unfiltered. You didn't create their discomfort. You revealed what was always there. And in that revelation, some will awaken, others will walk away. Both are valid. Both are responses to truth, because you, in your alignment, can no longer dim your field to protect someone from seeing what they're not ready to see. You're not a threat. You're a mirror. And what they do with the reflection is not your burden to carry. Sign 11. You attract intense bonds or sudden rejection, never indifference. You've probably noticed when people come close to you, they don't stay neutral. They either feel deeply drawn to you, as if they've known you forever, or they retreat, sometimes without explanation, as if your presence overwhelmed them. Carl Jung explained that when you live from the self, your energy carries a kind of psychological weight. It becomes magnetic for those seeking truth, and too heavy for those still clinging to illusion. You don't ask for intensity. You are intensity, not in volume or drama, but in depth. People feel your sincerity. They feel your stillness. They feel your unspoken clarity, and they respond. For some, it's a homecoming. For others, a disruption. And that's why your relationships rarely sit in the middle. They don't fade out. They ignite or they implode, because your energy doesn't support half-truths or lukewarm affection. You are either met in depth or left in silence. But this isn't rejection. It's vibrational sorting. You no longer attract based on performance. You attract based on resonance, and resonance doesn't allow indifference. It moves. It shakes. It awakens. So when people come close to you and either stay in soul or vanish in fear, don't take it personally. It's not about how lovable you are. It's about how real you've become. Sign 12. Your silence says more than their words, and that unnerves them. You don't need to speak loudly to be heard. You don't need to argue to make a point. Sometimes your silence alone shifts the atmosphere, more than any speech could. Carl Jung wrote that the unconscious often speaks through symbols, silence, and presence. And when someone is deeply aligned with their self, their very stillness becomes a message. That's you. You don't interrupt. You don't dominate. You simply are. And that being becomes a vibration others feel, even if they can't describe it. In your silence, others hear themselves. And for some, that's unsettling. They start talking more, explaining themselves, justifying what doesn't need defense, not because you're judging them, but because your quiet presence makes them aware of their noise. Your stillness holds a kind of truth, one that doesn't demand attention, but dissolves illusion. You've probably noticed people becoming fidgety around you when there's nothing. To say, that's because your silence reflects their discomfort, their avoidance, their disconnection. You don't speak, and yet they feel seen. You don't confront, and yet they feel revealed. Because your silence isn't empty. It's full of energy, of clarity, of awareness, and for many, that's more than they know how to handle. Sign 13, you awaken those who are ready and repel those who aren't. You're not trying to be a guide. You're not preaching. You're simply being, fully, truthfully, without shrinking. And yet, your presence has consequences. Some people begin to shift after meeting you. They can't go back to how they used to think, feel, or act, not because you taught them anything, but because your energy reminded them of something they forgot. Their own light. Carl Jung said that awakening is not about becoming something new, but about remembering what's been buried, and your vibration, when aligned, becomes a mirror of that remembrance. You don't need to say a word. You don't need to explain anything. You are the trigger, a gentle one, but a powerful one. 2. Those who are ready, your energy feels like truth, like medicine, like home, but to those who aren't, it feels like confrontation, like pressure, like too much. They'll call you intense, too spiritual, too out there. And what they're really saying is, I'm not ready for what you remind me I've been avoiding. That's not judgment, it's resonance, because energy never lies, or it aligns, and your energy is here to awaken, not appease. Let those who are ready draw near and let the rest fall away without blame. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to activate those who were always meant to find you. Now, you see, the way people reacted, the silence after your truth, the connections that couldn't hold your presence, the looks that made you feel like an anomaly. It was never about you being wrong. It was always about you being real. Carl Jung said that when we begin to live from the self, the true integrated self, we stop fitting into places built around pretense. Your vibration changed, and the world around you responded, not because you became someone else, but because you returned to who you've always been. People came close and backed away. Some couldn't breathe in the field of your truth. Some stayed and awakened beside. You and others never really saw you at all. But through it all you kept walking, you kept aligning, and with every step, your frequency became louder than your voice, clearer than your explanations. You no longer need to defend your sensitivity. You no longer need to apologize for your silence. You no longer need to shrink to make others comfortable. You are not misunderstood because you are broken. You are misunderstood because you are vibrating above the narrative, And those who can't meet you there aren't your fault. They are just not your mirror. But those who feel you, who soften when you speak, who breathe deeper in your presence, they are your tribe, and they will find you through resonance, not appearance, through energy, not effort. So if this message echoed something inside you, something you've always known but never put into words, comment below. My frequency speaks what I no longer need to explain. Let that be the quiet signal between us, those walking the unseen path, those vibrating in truth, those who no longer wait to be understood, to be who they already are.